friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dara and today I am going to kick off a reading vlog slash reading challenge. So I've decided to cancel my Kindle Unlimited account for now. Not because I don't love it, I do. I think there are some really great books available on Kindle Unlimited, some true unsung heroes, some true underrated gems, and I will shout from the rooftops about all of those. However, I own an extraordinary amount of books, both on my Kindle, in my Audible account, and on my physical shelves. And I need to just prioritise reading those for a little while. I have started to feel a little bit hemmed in by all of my physical possessions. So I just want to be reading and releasing a lot of my physical books sooner rather than later, which is why I've decided to cancel my Kindle Unlimited account for now, because I do tend to be more drawn to books that I don't own than ones that I do. So my account officially expires 10 days from now. So I have 10 days to read as many of the books that I've wanted to as I can. And that is really the content of this video. We are going to be trying to read as many Kindle Unlimited books as possible over the course of 10 days. The first one that I want to pick up has to be a Kennedy Ryan. I feel like I haven't read one of her books in a while. It's been a couple of months. So I think I'm going to go for Real, which is a standalone. So I think everything that I've read by her in the past has been part of a series. So I'm interested to see if the standalone experience is any different. I will update you as I go. I'm not going to decide on my TBR right now. I'm just going to go with my mood, because that's a way for me to see through these videos. If I have too much of a fixed TBR, I ultimately end up just not wanting to keep filming and scrap all of my efforts. So starting with Real, and I'm excited. Okay, time for a little update. So it is 2 days later and I have finished 2 books. So let's talk about them. The first book I read was Real by Kennedy Ryan, which of course was a gem because she only writes gems. So this is the first in a new series. I don't think any of the other installments have been released yet. And it's centered around sort of Hollywood. And we have this story of this relationship between Canon, like a high-powered famous director, and Neva, who is an actress that he sort of plucked from obscurity. So she was an understudy on Broadway, and he randomly saw her one night and was like, this is the person to play this particular role that I've been struggling to cast. And so it's really about them making this film together while like sort of fighting this just chemistry and this connection that they have. And we have like that storyline, and then we also get snippets of the film storyline, because it's a biopic telling the story of a fictional jazz singer. And sorry if you can hear my dogs growling at each other in the background. As always with Kennedy Ryan's romances, there is a lot more depth to it. It's never like a surface level, fluffy, chiclety kind of love story. There's always so much more going on. So, for example, in Real, we have the grief that Canon has dealt with. He lost his mum to complications related to MS, and that really sort of informed who he is as a person. We also have troubled family dynamics in Neva's case. We have chronic illness representation because Neva suffers from lupus, and Canon is becomes very involved in taking care of her. And we also have commentary on the film industry and the way people are treated in the industry in general, but also how Black artists are treated. And as always, there's so much to unpack. And it was a really enjoyable time. I read it so quickly. And what I will say is that it's not my favourite of Kennedy Ryan's books, because I just think the top spot is always going to be Grip. I don't see myself ever loving a story more than I loved Bristol and Grip's story. I don't know. If I was going to pick apart the reasons why, I think I would really struggle, because on the surface there's nothing wrong with this. Like Grip and Bristol just gave me like this different kind of like fizzy feeling. One thing, like minor bugbear, like the only thing that irritated me about this book, and I think that this wouldn't have happened if it was traditionally published and had an editor involved with it, but there was a phrase used multiple times that I didn't think needed to be there, and it was word for word. And so context, our main character Neva and her best friend watch Schitt's Creek together, and so they have lots of like in jokes, and they use like quotes and language from Schitt's Creek. And when like sort of framing that dialogue, the words drawing from our Schitt's Creek vernacular were repeated multiple times just like that. And I think like the first time that a reference was made, okay, fine, but then I kind of think like it's only like jokes are only funny if you let people draw their own conclusions. If you have to like explain them, they become less funny. And I know that is such like a minor quirk, but honestly that is the only flaw I found in the whole book. Other than that, it was stunning. If I was going to be really critical, I would say that I felt like it wrapped up really quickly. I felt like we had sort of this quite long drawn out journey between these two stunning characters, and then it was concluded quite rapidly in what felt like a chapter or two. And I would have just liked a little bit more like it towards the end. Like I would have liked to hear more about how the film that they were working on panned out and how it was received. Yeah, I wanted more basically, and that's not a criticism, that is a huge compliment. I wanted more. Okay, so the second book that I read was called, how is it that I can't remember when I literally 5 minutes ago finished reading it? Worth Waiting For by Jax Burrows. And this is another romance, and this one was an odd one for me. So the reason that I picked it up is because it screamed Grey's Anatomy vibes, and there is very little I love in life more than I love Grey's Anatomy. But it tells the story of Casey, who is a trauma surgeon who gets a job in his hometown in this hospital, and when he's there on his first day, he runs into a nurse who he actually had this crazy one-night stand with, I think 4 years ago, when they were both in London. They didn't know each other's names, they didn't know anything about each other, they never saw each other again, but then they're like thrown together and they have this connection, and they have like all of this like stuff to unpack together. And it was promising. Like the concept was there, you know, like KU romance, what more can you ask for? But honestly, the writing for me didn't do it. One of my bugbears with some KU romance is that the dialogue is so incredibly inorganic. Like you cannot imagine actual human beings, real people, saying these words and having these conversations. Like it just doesn't seem real at all. Something that Kennedy Ryan does amazingly is she writes dialogue not just between romantic partners and love interests, but between friends and between people who are having conflict. She writes dialogue supremely. It is stunning. It is so real. It is so lifelike. But with the other book that I read, I just constantly felt like it was not real. And this is gonna sound like really vague and not much help in terms of an analysis, but you know when you're reading a book and you're shown things and there is emotion infused into like so much of a story, that was missing for me. And it had the potential, because you know with any kind of medical drama situation, there's always emotional stuff going on, but it just felt like you were constantly being told what was happening. You were being told what people were thinking. You were being told what people were like wondering about. You were being told what people were feeling, and it was just like constantly being told things, like listed description after description after description. And yeah, it didn't suck me into in the story in the same way, or in the way that I want to be drawn in when I'm immersed in a romance, because I love a romance. And so unfortunately, that one did fall flat for me. I still read it, I still finished it, I didn't DNF it, but there were some issues. And that's just like just talking about the writing. Plot wise, like I also had a couple of comments and concerns about some of the plot points, some of the characters arcs that were brought in. Like I was generally not a fan. I'm not entirely against trying a book from this author again. I'm not that bothered about picking up another one from this specific series. I know that this one was the first in a series of standalone interconnected novels. But yeah, I read it, I finished it. It's another one I can return to KU. I'm not entirely decided where I'm going to go next. I did just read 2 romances back to back, so I'm not sure if I should pick something from a different genre, just because I don't want to get burnt out. Earlier in the year, I went through a phase where I read so many romances, and I kind of like got not bored of them, but I just got sick of being in the romance headspace. I am a mood reader. I like variety. So I'm going to have a little look at some of the things that I have on loan. Off the top of my head, a couple of good options would probably be The Millstone by Margaret Drabble, which is actually a classic, and Like Me by Hayley Phelan, which I believe is a thriller. So yeah, I'm torn between those 2 at the moment. But of course, as always, I will keep you updated. I don't know how I have the audacity to tell such barefaced lies. I don't know why I was pretending that I'm not in the grips of an extreme, audacious romance moment, because I am. So it's been 4 days since I last filmed an update, and in that time I've read not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 KU romances, all from Devney Perry's Clifton Forge series, and I'm in love. I still have book 6 to go, and then I'm done with the series, but that's going to be done today, I can tell you that much. And I'm trying to decide, do I give you an update on all of the individual books? No, I'm not going to do that. I might do that in my monthly wrap up, but for now I'm just going to give you the overall vibe, because let's be frank, I've read them like one long book. So this tells the story of a small town in Montana called Clifton Forge, and in this town there is a former biker gang called the Tin Gypsies, and they dismantled their club a year or 2 before the first book starts. And we start off our adventure with a reporter really wanting to know why, because nobody really knows why. And so she starts sort of like getting involved with them and like asking inappropriate questions, and coming to blows with the very handsome and dashing former president of the club. You know where that's going to go. And meanwhile, a murder takes place in the town, and it is linked to the former club. And so she is trying to unravel what happened. And that's where we kick off. And I will say that although these are romances, they do have this sort of underlying plot of like mysteries and like action and other events that tie all of the books together. So I would recommend reading the series in order rather than just picking and choosing, because you will be missing quite a lot of like context and backstory that does feel relevant, because each book really does build upon the previous one. And I'm having a great time. I love that pretty much all of the love interests in all 5 books so far have been slightly older. So we're not talking like teens, early 20s. And I really like that for a change, just because, I'm 31 now, and I want to see myself in the characters that I'm reading. And when they're like 23, I don't see that anymore. So I've just been having a great time. I'm currently just like wrapped in a towel after having a cold shower, because for some reason I picked a day hotter than hell to do a bunch of manual labour in my garden. I've been like digging things and planting things, and I got very hot, very sweaty and very muddy, so cold shower was what the doctor ordered. Anyway, I read all 5 of those books. Don't regret a second of it, and I will be finishing book 6 tonight. And I still have 3 days before my KU account expires, so I'm trying to decide what to do next. Like, do I pick a standalone to hedge my bets, or do I dive headfirst into another series and, you know, see if I can squeeze it in? That's the question. I am loving my Devney Perry moment, but do I want to like binge all of her books in one go, or do I want to pace myself? These are the kind of dilemmas I'm dealing with right now. I don't know. I still have book 6 to read, so I've got time and I'll make my decisions afterwards, but not before I make myself something icy to drink. Like, I need an iced coffee or an iced water or something iced, because and for those of you who are bored, just know that when I'm bitching and moaning about the heat, I know that it's hotter where you live, but I'm a delicate English flower and we do not have air conditioning, so let me have my whiny little moment, please, and thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get dressed. I'm gonna pick my book up. I'm gonna absorb ice in some form, and we are gonna do this thing. So, update time. I have finished the last book in the Clifton Forge series, which was called Tin Queen, and I really enjoyed it again. With this one, I did notice a couple of like little editing errors. I didn't notice that as like just a trend in the rest of the series, but with this one I did. So it was probably my least favourite of the lot. Not just for that reason, but yeah. I still enjoyed it though, I still had a good time. What I will say is that the epilogues of each of these books get more chaotic as the series go on, and I think it's because more and more people start getting involved, because you have to remember that this is the story of 6 different couples that are all very much in each other's lives. So the epilogues contain all of them and their various children throughout the years, but because you don't really meet all of these children in the main books, it can just feel a little bit all over the place. Like, you don't really know who's who and who's kid, and it doesn't even seem entirely relevant. But honestly, those are my only points that I want to like critique, because I did have such a good time reading this whole series, and I had such a good time reading it all in one go as well. It was just really fun. Sorry if you can hear my dogs playing around in the background. It is currently the 20th, so my Kindle Unlimited account expires tomorrow. I don't know if that means that it expires like midnight tonight or midnight tomorrow. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to keep reading until I get kicked off. But what I've decided to pick up next is the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey, or Stabby. And this is one that I've seen a bunch of people talk about on YouTube, and like, I'm not on TikTok, but apparently it's like talked about a lot on TikTok as well. And the main reason that I wanted to pick this up is because I know that they're all short. So it's a series of 5 books, like usually between like 150 and 170 pages. So that gives me hope that I can get through a decent chunk of them before Kindle Unlimited goes bye-bye. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get to all 5, especially if I only have until midnight tonight, but we will see how we go. I'm going to stay optimistic. Okay, I made it to the 21st and I managed to complete the full Mindfuck series. So since we last spoke, which was yesterday, I made a start on the first book. And do you know what? It was really quick to read, very fast paced, very short, which made it easy for me to run through them all pretty speedily. I finished book 5 this morning and I'm feeling content with my progress from this week. I feel like I need a little bit of a break now. If you haven't heard anybody else talk about it, the Mindfuck series tells the story of a couple, one of which is an FBI agent who specialises in profiling serial killers, and one being a serial killer. And so we're sort of seeing our like female protagonist Lana, you know, go about life killing men, wreaking vengeance, having a great old time, and we see Logan sort of investigating while also falling in love with her. And do you know what? They are poorly written. There's no getting away from that. Like, they could use a good edit. And they are not going to give you the same fizzy feelings that a romance usually does. Like, the emotional component isn't quite there, but they're fun, they're fast paced, they clearly kept me engaged enough to read all 5 books. And like I said, they are short. I think the longest one is about 175 pages, and then all of the others are under 150 pages. So they are very, very quick reads. So if you're looking for something to just, you know, distract you, to keep you engaged, to get yourself out of a reading funk maybe and back into the room, they might be a great place to start. Ignore the hideous covers. Try and look past the not so great writing at parts and just enjoy the experience. They give me very much like unedited fanfic vibes, which isn't a terrible thing, you know. Sometimes that's what you want. You don't always want to be reading a literary classic. Sometimes you just want silliness and drama and chaos and fun, and that's what these books deliver. So I'm gonna wrap up this video now because like I said, I'm tired, I need a break, but I feel pretty pleased with what I've managed to accomplish over the past 10 days. So in that time, I have managed to read 13 books, 13 Kindle Unlimited books in 10 days. Not mad about that. So we started with Real by Kennedy Ryan, which was stunning as always. Then we had Worth Waiting For by Jack Burrows, which upon reflection was really not great at all. It was very, very forgettable, very poorly written, not believable, just, yeah, not great. Then I read all 6 books from the Clifton Forge series, which are, I don't know if I'm going to get the order right, but Steel King, Riven Knight, Stone Princess, Tin Prince, Fallen Jester, Tin Queen. I'm not sure if I've got that right. Yeah, not sure. But that's because I read them so rapidly back to back, the names just blur a little bit. All of them were thoroughly enjoyable, really, really enjoyed those. So the Clifton Forge series by Daphne Perry, I would highly recommend. And then, of course, I ended with all 5 books in the Mindfuck series, which I think are The Risk, Sidetracked, Scarlet Angel, All the Lies, and Paint It Red, I think. Do you know what? I'm going to look this up because I would be the worst, literally the worst booktuber in the world if I can't even give you book titles. I feel like that is the basics that you can expect. So let's take a look at Goodreads and see what the actual book titles are. So, I was almost right with the Clifton Forge series. So we have Steel King, River Knight, Stone Princess, Noble Prince, Fallen Jester, Tin Queen in order. And then Mindfuck by S.T. Abbey, we have The Risk, Sidetracked, Scarlet Angel, All the Lies, and Paint It All Red. I wasn't too off base. Like, I feel like I should get half points for that. Anyway, I thoroughly have enjoyed my crazy week of reading. If you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in this video, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And I would usually say, give me your KU recommendations, but as of today, I no longer have a Kindle Unlimited account. I will definitely be signing up again in the future, but for now, I just want to focus on reading more of the books that I own, both on my Kindle and physically. So if you've enjoyed this video, then do the usual things, hit subscribe, and, you know, I will see you for the next one.